Hey, 740D, this is Dr. Zitzman. And as we're moving into the last 2 weeks of class, I wanted to share with you your last two paper assignments. So I'm going to look at paper assignment number 3 and paper assignment number 4, just to give you an overview of what you're doing and where we're going from here. So to do that, I'm going to share my screen, as always. And this, of course, is the APA template that you all have been using for your papers 1 and 2. As your paper grows, as you move into papers 3 and 4, please continue to join all the sections together, okay? That way you can show how this paper is kind of growing, building on itself. So here we have part 1 that you did, the dilemma and context, which includes something of the practice setting, the situation, and the core conflict. Green is all that you did in your paper part 2, the literature review, theories, laws, the code of ethics and principles. So that paper just folds right in. Paper 3 is this blue section, values and biases. So here I'm looking for you to review all 6 social work values. So those are values like the dignity and worth of the person, the importance of relationships, social justice, service, competence, and integrity. I want you to look at all 6 of those values and think about how each of them interacts with or informs your decision making. Societal values can be pretty much anything that you see reflected in society that might be influencing your thinking. So these can be very broad societal values. For example, the United States highly values individualism and autonomy. So maybe those are values that you reflect on. Some students choose to think about values within social values within a smaller group. So maybe maybe you're working within substance use, for example, and so the community of people who interact with recovery from substance abuse might have a specific set of values to that group of people, as an example. So you want to look at societal values here. Organizational values might include things that are written out formally through your organization. Some, formal orgs will have, here's our mission and here are our values. Sometimes they don't. Here, I want you to either draw from explicitly stated values or imply what the organization's values might be. For example, I've had students working in healthcare settings who say, well, the organization formally states that it values healthcare outcomes for clients, but at the same time, the organization also values financial restrictions and profit, which are sometimes in conflict with client health outcomes. So you can kind of show the complexity within the values of organizations if that seems appropriate to your situation. Client values, you're going to have to infer, most likely, from what you have noticed in your clients. And then your personal values and biases are really important. And I want these to be two separate things. I want to hear about your values, what it is that you prioritize that might be coming up and playing out in this situation. And then with your personal biases, what are the pieces of yourself that might generate a bias? We all have biases, right? Just like we all have values. The important part of ethical practice is noticing them, becoming aware of them in order to do something intentional with them. So as an example of bias, first of all, think about if you have any experience of countertransference that might be coming out with this client. So perhaps, if you're working with a client whose mother is very overbearing and you're trying to decide what to do with that, well, have you had the experience of a mother who's very overbearing and that might be creating a bias against the mother? Okay, that's an example. Other examples, of course, you should think about your demographics, think about, for myself, I am a white woman raised in the Deep South, right? Those lenses that I bring to social work are things that I need to be aware of, positionality that I need to be aware of. How is that similar or dissimilar from the clients that I'm working with? and how might that create bias either in agreement or in disagreement with the client that I'm working with. So I want you to, there's not a right or wrong answer in these sections. It's more like I want to see your honesty and transparency and being willing to look at these things. And then the last part is your value hierarchy. Here, I want you to rank them. So you can either rank these sections, like what do you think is most important, but really what I'm actually looking for is more like, of all the values that have been listed out here, how would you sort and prioritize which ones are most important? So maybe client well-being and safety is number one, maybe number two is client autonomy, maybe number three is then your organizational values, or some combination, right? So I just want you to show me that you can not only think about the value sets, but then think through how you would prioritize and why you would prioritize them in certain ways. Okay, so that's paper 3. It's a value reflection. It's not going to require research on your part, maybe a reference to your organization, maybe a reference to Dolgoff and Harrington if you choose to use that text in the hierarchy, but it's really not at all a research paper. It's a value reflections paper. Part 4, now we're moving on to paper part 4, so that will be due the last day of class. Here, you're pulling everything together. This is the section that shows me, okay, I've just walked through all these different aspects of the decision-making model, and now I can come to a place where I have clear options. Okay, you're going to name, you should have at least 2 options, right? I'm either going to make the call or I'm not going to make the call. We're going to accept this funding offer or we're going to deny the funding offer. Sometimes you'll have an option number 3, which would be something like, okay, well, we're not going to accept, the grant funding for this section and program because it's beyond our mission's scope, but we will accept a portion of it, right? Or maybe it's, I don't want to give away, I'm thinking of specific papers that y'all have, but anyway, there might be a third process in between, a third option, okay? So what are the decision actionable options that you have? I want you to then not only name the options that you have, but clearly tell me what your chosen position is and tell me why you're choosing it. This is really the heart of paper 4. You're going to pull from all the good work that you've done in parts 1, 2, and 3 to justify why you're choosing an option. There will likely be, you could likely justify different options because it's a dilemma. Here, I want you to explain what feels like the most robust reasons. Maybe as you were reviewing, you noticed that there was clearly literature in support of option 2. And, as you dug deeper into the evidence base, you were reading about, or maybe you read into the laws, right? And you read the definition of what child abuse was, or you read what the definition of a vulnerable adult was, and you realize while the case is concerning, it does not rise to that definition. Okay, so I want to hear about the literature, about the laws, about your theory, about the code of ethics standards, principles and values. I want you to draw from all those different parts to really give me a thick, robust idea. Now, I say all the parts, you don't have to literally go through every single portion, but the more robust your description is, the better off this section will be, okay? The last 2 parts are implementation and then risk management. So here you are likely going to draw on some new references. So implementation, even if you have a great actionable option, if you can't implement it, then you can't do it, right? So you have to be able, the action option has to be feasible and you have to show me what you would do. So for example, this is going to draw on generalist practice skills. It might be something like, I'm going to sit down and talk to this client one-on-one. I'm going to explain that I'm a mandated reporter and what that entails. I'm going to explain, what my responsibilities are in terms of protecting this child. And then we're going to create a safety plan for how to address the child's problematic behavior going on. Great. So you're telling me how you're going to implement this conversation with this parents that you had decided on. Or maybe you decide to make the call. Maybe then you tell me, okay, I'm going to sit with this client and explain that I'm a mandated reporter. I'm going to explain that what I have observed does constitute suspected child abuse. We are then going to work together to make the phone call to CPS, and together with the client in the room, as the client is calling and contributing to the conversation with CPS, we are going to then also document together whatever paperwork CPS is now asking for. Okay, great. Here's another example where you've shown me the skill and rapport and how you're going to carry out this decision. The last part, risk management, is showing me that you understand that we unfortunately live in a very litigious society. You're going to talk to me about ways to minimize risk of harm to yourself, to your clients, to your organization, to anyone that's involved. This can be something as simple as documentation, consultation. It can be the choice itself, which emphasizes the child's well-being and safety. It could be drawing from evidence base, right? And demonstrating through your documentation that your decision is an evidence-informed decision. Whatever you think is going to help mitigate risk is what you need to put here. Then, just like you provide an intro paragraph, you provide a conclusion paragraph that simply summarizes what you've said. In this paper, I reviewed a dilemma pertaining to boundaries. In the dilemma, we explored the core conflict of XYZ by looking this, that, and that in order to come to such and such a conclusion. So you show me what you've just covered through this section. You, of course, need your references. Now, for paper 4, I want you to intentionally provide revised copies of your previous papers. This is especially true if you had to do some deeper revisions. So if I asked you to really pretty substantially revise anything from papers 1, 2, or 3, please make those revisions. They will be graded as part of your grade in paper 4. Again, if you have any questions, if you need any support, I am here. I have office hours. I'm available. Just reach out by email or by scheduling on my calendar. I am here to help you. So I look forward to reading your thinking as it continues to unfold, and I wish you all well. Enjoy the learning. Bye, everyone.